Herzlich willkommen bei 5 Minuten für Wein am Limit. In English it means wine at the limit. And I heartily welcome my old friend, no, my dear old friend. You're not old, you're the youngest, I have to say. Peter Vinding-Diers with his wife Susie, which doesn't want to appear on camera, which is sitting over there. And probably watching us, like yeah, there she is. And they are from Sicily. Well, there's a long story behind this gentleman, I have to say. And probably, well, 5 minutes is too short anyway.
Yes.
Well, we concentrate on one chapter, yeah. Basically on the last chapter which you've opened. Perfect. About your endeavors and your enterprise and your project, your vision in Sicily.
Yeah.
In Melilli.
Yes.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Peter Vinding-Diers from Montecarrubo, sorry.
Yes. Yes, Montecarrubo, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's Melilli, whether it's Sicily or whatever it is, but when you find the right piece of land to make great wines, in my case, you have to grab it and do something with it. Mm-hmm. And so in 2005, my wife and I bought this property, and the property is on an old volcano that exploded 2 million years ago. The soil is absolutely perfect for growing vines. There's a cold breeze coming in from the sea, and there's a view onto the sea, and it slopes down towards the sea, as all classic vineyards, classic great vineyards do, most of them. And it was such a temptation when you saw this piece of land, barren, only a few almond trees, some very old olive trees that hadn't been tended for years and years. And so we had to get that piece of land. Now, in 2010, we planted Vignolo and Vinding-Diers, two vineyards with some wonderful material I got from France, from Hermitage, from some friends there, and it's a Massal selection, which means that you go in your vineyard and you select the vines every year that are adapted to your climate, to your terroir. And as it's quite warm in Hermitage, I thought that those wines would do very well for me. Now I go in my vineyard and select the grapes or the vines that suit my terroir. And hopefully my kids will be happy when I'm no longer there, and those vines are doing very well indeed. They make a particular taste with us, which is highly, you find it immediately wherever you are. Hugh Johnson, who is a friend of mine, said that Vignolo was a unique wine. Wherever you stumbled over it, you know immediately where it was from and what it was. And that was a fantastic, not only compliment, but also inspiration to carry on and to do better. And I think there are two kinds of people in wine: the ones who do cooperative winemaking, and the ones who strive to make the best possible.
Your book has just been published, A Viking in the Vineyard. You mentioned to me once you're okay with the title. I guess because it sells well, but you're Danish from provenance, but you've traveled the world, South Africa, Hungary. Your son is making wine in Patagonia. The other Anders was making wine in Spain. You've been, let's say, all over the planet. Basically, to first landed on Sicily on the Etna, and then basically walking down the slopes.
I went down the Black Mountain.
Yes, you went down the mountain. So that means, because when you said like, I've had to have it, or we've had to have it.
Yes.
What makes it so special? You said the wind and you said the soil, but it's also, like, of course, that's like for everybody, we can see it, but to give us a feel.
Well, shall we also say that's the challenge of creating a Grand Cru. Not many people have that chance. And when you get it, you must take it. And that was what we did. And I think we are really getting there. it has been, Vignolo has been said by many people who know real great wines, masters of wine and all that, and even I think a master sommelier has declared it one of the best Syrahs in Italy.
Yeah.
And already now with these young wines, to get there, you can imagine what the wine is going to be like when the vineyard is old.
Yeah.
And that is such an inspiration, a spur to produce better.
I've been visiting your place, and I can confirm that both vineyards, the Il Vignolo and the Vigna Grande, are just lovely. Right. They're lovely. And one thing about the Marsal selection, but we might come back to the Marsal. Let's start tasting the first wine, which is Magnum bottle is the right size for both of us if one of us is not drinking.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have the wine called Il Piccolo. Which
Piccolo is
kleine.
The little one is.
What's the concept behind this wine? Or concept? What's the idea? That's much better. There's no concept, I guess. It's an idea.
Well, I make, when I go and blend and so on, whatever's left over. Okay. I'm afraid that goes into Il Piccolo.
So that's like the salami.
Exactly.
but I mean, salami can be very tasteful.
Yes.
Well, if the products are nicely, and even though if it's just the leftovers, a salami can be much better sometimes than a steak.
I know, but you know, a salami is something very special. Everything has an end, but a salami has two.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's a German saying, alles hat ein Ende, nur die Wurst hat zwei. Okay, we got that.
Well, so we're there. We're there. Okay.
So here, but this is a different. Let's say you have two lines basically. You have these two wines.
Yeah.
We taste the Il Vignolo later. The Vigna Grande we don't have today, and now we're tasting the wines from a different part, not too far from you. But
no, not too far. We have this leasehold. We found while we were waiting for Vignolo to grow up and make wine, we had to live, and so we got a leasehold of a vineyard down in Noto, about 70 kilometers from where we live, and
that's the eastern. That's the eastern southeastern tip.
Yes.
Basically of Sicily.
Yes.
But the soil is different from yours. That's calcareous soils there.
Pure calcare.
Yeah.
Pure.
Which is not the
white.
It's a good soil for making wine.
It's wonderful to make. It makes these very nervous, very linear wines, and I think it shows in them too. So when I've made all those blends, Montecarrubo is the main one, but this is the Piccolo of Montecarrubo. So this is the
20 vintage is you were mentioning once to me. You mentioned like you're very happy with that vintage.
Wonderful vintage. It's the best vintage.
What's a wonderful vintage?
Everything goes right. I've never really experienced it before, but everything went right, and that's just a wonderful feeling. I remember in '82. You know, when I lived in Bordeaux and I walked into Mouton, we were great friends, and it was not like now. Now you have, I think, to buy a ticket or something. But in those days, you just walked in, and there were nobody up there. And I walked in, and Raoul Blondin, the old cellar master, I said, "So, Raoul, what was the '82 vintage for you?" He said, "You can go to any barrel, Peter, but any barrel, and you can taste it. And you will find the most beautiful wine." And we know it was. And it was a wonderful moment. I saw his joy, his happiness. And the same with me in 2020 at home. There was no barrel that wasn't good. So it was very nice.
You're also not a man, even though I think it was me to urge you to write the blend on the back label. You're not, well, I was one of them because our clients demanded. But in this case, the SYRAH is just 14%. Well, we hope it is.
Yeah.
62% Cabernet Franc and 24% Merlot. So that's very different from the wines you produce.
I am a SYRAH man. At home, we only have SYRAH. And then I don't have all the problems of sitting and finding out the percentage of grapes. Ridiculous demand. So
yeah, everybody wants to, you know, everybody wants to be curious, and
Yeah.
for some reason, like they don't want to offend themselves, because by saying like, oh, I don't know about this, and if they whether like it or not, it's hard sometimes to speak about wine.
It is. It's well, for me, it's not hard because I don't suffer from these incredible ideas of an ordinary wine drinker who should just be happy about the wine. Now wants to be a bit of a scientist at the same time.
Yeah.
And science, yes, of course, science is important in winemaking, but it's not omni-important. There are many other factors that are much more important. And I remember a lot of young Australian winemakers wanting to correct the pH and so on. And I said, no, we do that by blending. We don't do correcting by adding acidity and whatever. And I never found that all these corrected wines actually produced something I wanted to drink. I'm a very natural person.
Let's see how natural this gets.
Well, yeah.
The color is lovely. It's developing now, I think.
Yes.
It's the wine you can see. I mean, Sicily is known for, let's say, different styles than you produce, to be honest. I mean, it's either the local varieties.
Yes.
Some of them are very obscure, like which not many people know, like the Nerellos from the Etna, or then you have the Nero d'Avola, which delivers a very heavy-duty, sometimes robust wines.
Yes.
I mean, Sicily is huge also in the terms of Italian, as an Italian wine region. It's the largest.
Is it really? Yeah.
That's what I read. Well, however, but it's large.
We planted a Sicilian variety called Grillo white wine, white variety. And we got some material from the Experimental Research Institute in Marsala, and it's absolutely wonderful. And at the same time, we are planting an forgotten variety, but it's been in Sicily for 3,000 years. I just say these things because it's people accuse me of being international. I'm not at all international. But I just like fine wine, and
this is very fine wine.
Yes, nice.
I mean, the nose is spicy. You get a touch of the oak. I mean, you must love very good oak, because it's a very noble oak smell. But it's not like overpowering. And then I think that even though the SYRAH is only 14%. I guess it's 14%. I can sniff it. Maybe it's 14.5%. But you get a little bit of that black olive, which I like in SYRAH. Sometimes Shiraz gets very opulent. This is more a classic style.
Yes, that's totally correct.
So I'm happy I did something right today. I just got 100 points from Peter Vinding-Diers for my wine description. No, but it's it is a warm nose.
Yeah.
And this is what I like about your wines, what I've experienced in the past. They are noble, they have breed, they have class. There's a certain kind of warmth. I mean, we are obviously south, but they're not cooked. They're not jam.
No.
And that happens a lot of times, or dried, a prune. I don't find this.
No.
So picking at the right time is crucial.
That's very important. And the right time is no longer, as a friend of mine said, when the grape closes, because that means when it's dead. And that's not at all the time to pick. You have to pick at the right moment. And according to varieties, there are moments, as they call it these days, the window of picking, Merlot, for instance, is about 24 hours. Whereas Cabernet, you can last for a week or two. So you have to be very precise. I can't say that I have the measure equipment to measure this precision. So it's a little bit touch and go, but it's touch and go with 50-something years experience. And that does help. I mean, I'm a craftsman, and so in Handwerker.
Yeah.
And I know my Handwerk, more or less. And so, like an old carpenter, I can do a nice piece of job if I want.
Of wood or something.
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
I can look at a piece of wood and say, yeah, this will be really perfect. And you can look at grapes and you can look at a vineyard to understand it, and then that comes with age. You know, nobody is born with that. The French think they're born saying that that this is, as we've talked so much about it, this is Cheval Blanc 47. They think they're born with that gift, but nobody is born with that gift, of course. And so it's something you have to learn. And if, like you can remember wines you tasted long ago, and it's wonderful to have that gift.
Yeah, and it is a gift. Sorry to interrupt, but some of it is a gift, but most of it is just training,
Yes,
training, and
Absolutely
you need to focus.
Yeah.
That's what I always think when people say, with wine, it's complicated, or I like wine, I don't know what to taste. Yeah. But in reality, is like if you focus and if you concentrate and if you're willing to pay 2 minutes to the taste of a beverage, and you want to memorize it, you will have a chance. But many people just drink and don't even memorize, and then they go to the next drink, and then they say, I have no clue about wine. So I think that's a pity, because it's the world of wine is not just about consumption. No. It's about stories, it's about talking, it's about experience.
And happiness. Yes, it's very important that.
You seem to be a happy man.
I'm a very happy man, but I'm also got a very nice wife, and she keeps me happy. She does everything she can to keep me happy. Super. That's wonderful.
Talking about Il Piccolo, what I noticed while we were talking, it's quite long, and the acidity is quite fresh. There's a good acidity, so you don't acidify your wines. No. You don't. I mean, there is now the big thing in the wine business to manipulate. Yes. But I mean, sometimes probably certain things need to be done. I think it's a bit exaggerated discussion sometimes about
the manipulating discussion belongs in a cooperative.
Yeah.
There you have, or people who have big brands, they have to deliver, like in Champagne in the old days. They're leaving it now. But in the old days in Champagne, you had to deliver the same quality and taste year by year. You can do that if you have huge stocks, as they do. But it's not, well, a lot of the cellar masters thought it was fun, and it was a huge challenge to them and so on. But to me, those wines that are manipulated are not half as interesting. Say, one year there's a bit of extra volatile acidity, and but that volatile acidity, if we go back before the 50s, that volatile acidity would be there, and it was demanded that it was there. Where then Philippe de Rothschild changed that in 56, I think it was, 55. And then the market suddenly went away from that. Parker demanded wines that were with these overripe grapes and sort of heavy,
let's say impressive wines. He was very much
less charming. I think monoliths.
With Parker, of course, it's a long story. But one thing is, I mean, he certainly had a good taste for classic Bordeaux, and I think he was also for own wines.
He changed the taste of Bordeaux.
And then throughout the years, he basically changed his vision of his wines. Talking good, that's interesting. Sorry, that was interesting what you were saying about that volatile acidity at one point wasn't a problem in the winemaking. No. It became one because we were driving for the over-perfection. Some of us, some of the winemakers. No,
I was at a dinner at Mouton with a lot of people, and I sat next to Hugues Lotton, who was one of the old boys. And I said, this wine, it was a 40-something, and this wine is full of volatile acidity. Well, how come? He said, Peter, that was the thing. Everybody had that. But Philippe changed it all, and Philippe Rothschild was sitting at the next door table. And he leant over and he said, Philippe, can't we do something to make Peter understand what is going on here? And next day at lunchtime, Philippe served the 55, which was not a mean wine. And he said, that year I decided I did not want to have any more volatile, and it actually changed the whole style. And then we tasted several wines leading up to 82. And it was a wonderful, friendly, and a huge lesson. Also a lesson in humility and understanding, trying to understand that with every generation practically somebody have to prove some point. And so the change of taste in wine happens.
It all the time.
All the time.
All the time. I think now we see, let's say there's a certain kind of looseness in the fine wine. I can see that the people, well, some of them remain on that path, but some people say, I'm not interested anymore in driving every year for the 100% perfectionist, for the 101 points.
Yes.
So they say, okay, but they've learned their lesson from it. And I mean, what Philippe de Ruche probably did is like, looking at, he didn't only produce Mouton, also he has Mouton Cadet and other things.
Oh yeah.
So for that kind of wine, you need to have a different
That was completely
idea.
different.
It's a different idea.
Yeah.
But that still influences a bit, I think, that kind of, let's say, the top level.
Yeah, but
or the other way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but he had some genius young people working for him, and it was great fun. He had huge understanding of what was going on, and a great man.
We taste Il Vignolo now, which is like kind of it's the essence of Susie and you. I mean, in your work, it is one of the two vineyards. You have the Vigna Grande. Here you are.
And
Vignolo. Sorry. So Vignolo, it's 2017 we're tasting. So this is 100% Syrah.
Yes.
100% vineyard. You mentioned Marsal, and we shall not forget,
No.
because Marsal, I think now, since we are living in a world where we understand that maybe the climate is not only changing, it can destroy, we can destroy ourselves, and we need to find some solutions how to continue. I think the industry doesn't have a clue at the moment.
No.
Can be only the standard bearers, the best. They can come up with new ideas.
That's right. There's a lot of things going on at the moment. We're trying to get away from copper and sulfur, and we have more or less found at least half the way. We also are working on picking earlier. And then we have to make up our mind whether that's a good idea or not. But for us living in the south, there are two factors that means less alcohol. One, of course, is to pick early, but then you have side effects. But there are also another factor which is even more important, is that if your vineyard is happy, you naturally get less problems with alcohol. Because
how do you keep your vineyard happy?
We give ours manure. Then you have cow manure. Our neighbor is a chap with a
farmer.
Yeah, he's a farmer. He has cows, and we get the manure from there. He's also bio-registered and all that nonsense. And so, no, it's not nonsense, but it can be over-exaggerated.
Exactly, especially because it's very much administrative work.
Yeah.
More administrative
more
sometimes.
Than anything else. and they come every year and they control us and they go through ledgers and books and what have you. And it's very boring. And we hardly ever go out and look at the vines and look at what's happening outside. It's there we should look. And then it would be nice to have people who you can explain what you're doing to and who would understand what you're trying to achieve. Not always easy.
So back to Marsal, that means like if you are working your vineyard, you need to know your vineyard, and this will be hard if you're working a 200 hectare estate or something. With Marsal, even then you could do it.
You have a good vineyard manager.
Then you need to put in work.
Yes.
And that means that could be expensive. That's why sometimes it's avoided. And
yes, I mean, it was so easy when the Americans came up with clonal systems, and then they made a law saying clonal system. We know we would be very unhappy if human beings were certainly clonalized. I know some politicians would love it, but
at the moment we have some leaders in the world who would like to have clones.
Yeah, and you believe that some of them are.
You're right.
But
so at the moment we are still Marsal in our society.
I thank God for that, and thank God for the Marsal selection in vineyards, because this will save us in a climate, if the climate changes, because say that the one vine, which is a clone, and you have 10,000 species of the same vine in your hectare. If that is not resistant to the hot weather, your vineyard dies. In the Marsal selection, 2 or 3 vines might die. But if you select well and conscientiously of what you have, the nicest plants, the plants that respond to 3 months of no rain and 50 degrees of sun, of heat, those are of course the plants that we will want to plant in future. And so a vineyard with them, it won't be perfection, but it will be very good.
So you take the cuttings, you basically put them on the root system again, of course, and then you just replant them.
And then we plant them.
Okay, that's basically the story.
We just planted 1.5 hectares of that.
Yeah, and that means you create biodiversity, many different plants, many different species.
Of course, a lot of biodiversity, and also we do other things. We planted some lavender some years ago, and that changed a lot of things. And we kept bees, and that changes a lot of things. And cover crops for the winter. It's important if you lack something. And nowadays you can measure exactly where you are in your land and what you've got and what you haven't got. And so that's it. All that is really important. We are longing for the day when we can have electric tractors. It's not really there yet, but I'm sure within the next 10 years it will be there.
Sure. Or you go back to, I mean, some people prefer horse plowing.
I did. But I had horses in the 80s. In Bordeaux I had horses. They all laughed at me. But I had horses, but I don't have horses here for one reason: nobody knows how to do it. Yeah,
and it also they take a lot of care and energy.
They take a lot of care.
I've seen some good results. I know some people relying on it. Some people just use it for propaganda.
Yes,
but some people are very serious about it. And this is what I like. Yes. And one thing is that a farm runs with not only with humans, also with animals.
It does.
That means dogs,
yes,
sheep, maybe.
Yes. We used to have it all in Vinding-Diers. We had it all, and we were practically self-sufficient. We still have a wonderful vegetable garden, and which is Susie's domain, and we share a lot of the vegetables with the people who work with us on the farm, and they're very happy about that. And they all say, but we know this, never been sprayed, this is as it should be, natural, they call it. Natural is the big word. Which is just normal when you say craft or agriculture. And just respect. It's respect in agriculture, yeah. Il Vignolo, that's a different style of wine. I think when and this is basically what I said about this, the best SYRAH from Italy, well, whatever the best may be, but what I noticed about this wine, it's out of the world of Italian SYRAH, which I have experienced before. I think the Marsal takes a big role in this. Very big. The terroir takes a big role. So it's not an overly, let's say, very heavy duty SYRAH, and it's a bit like very dense at the same time. So there I can see. All what we've talked before. Yes. Wow, that's a big step to make a wine like this. Because I'm sure nobody in Sicily makes a wine like this SYRAH. They haven't got it. They haven't got it. No. I think the plants count for a lot, and there, of course, the terroir, as everybody talked about, also count for a lot. And so the idea is to make something that you recognize immediately, which is the berry, or the vines look after that. That is elegant, relatively light, but with a depth, a middle, which is, after all, denouncing a certain amount of concentration. And to do all that and come out with a 12.5, sometimes 13, is a sign that your vineyard is happy. Balance. Yeah, and also we don't come out like one of these huge, heavy cotillons. No, we come out like a Northern Rhone, much more than that.
You get more the black olive. You get the plummies. Well, not the dimson, I think they're called.
Yes,
so right. More sourish, and I get a lot of let's say not spices, réglisse. So licorice. You get a bit of licorice. Herbs. I get a lot in this wine.
A lot of herbs.
Yeah. So
and that is Sicilian.
Like macchia.
So I'm not imitating a wine from somewhere else. I'm making my own wine, expressing my terroir.
I think people are just sometimes, when they say, well, this is an international wine, I think they are just not paying attention that maybe they should use better materials from the beginning to achieve something like this. And yes, there are similarities with other wines in the world which are icon, like the Northern Rhone SYRAH, of course. But hey, this has a much warmer appeal. So whatever it takes to achieve the best, I mean, how can people be jealous on this, I think?
I don't know. Ignorance plays a lot of, and the human being is not the nicest animal in the world.
No, not necessarily. It can be.
Yes,
which is interesting. We are basically like Janos, so we have both sides.
Absolutely, absolutely. The Janos head, yes, but it's just I'm not interested in that. Somebody said about Hans, my son's wonderful wines from Patagonia. They said, Argentinian wines, I don't know whether we get... I said, well, this is not an Argentinian wine. This is neue. It's different. This is Vignolo. Pingus is Pingus. Alvaro Palacios wines, they're his wines. And I wouldn't say that they were typically Spanish or typically Argentinian or typically Italian or Sicilian. It's just that for some other reason we have a signature. And our wine is that signature, it's our personality maybe.
It might call excellence, and people don't understand that excellence is another level of hard work. And it has to do with hard work, and not with just points or whatsoever, or let's say...
points.
Well, points, but they help. I mean, that's for sure. And I think also they have their system, but it's not like... It's a little bit with the Bible. You should read it, but you probably also should live your own life at the same time.
I think so.
By respecting it.
I think you should read the Bible. You should also read the Quran. You should read a lot of things. I think you should read. The Indians. You should read about things, and you should respect them all, because I don't think there's one religion that's much better than another, frankly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Coming back to this wine, to the Vignolo. The Vignolo, and so what's the difference between the Vigna Grande and the Vignolo?
There are two Marsal selections.
Yes, so that's...
And they make two totally different wines. This is so exciting.
And they're not far from each other.
And there are 100 meters between them. And but Vigna Grande is right up on top of this volcano, whereas Vignolo is on the former seabed. It was a volcano set in the ocean. And so it's on the former seabed, and we have a lot of, apart from the volcanic soil and a lot of calcaire, we also have fossilized sand, which is very hard on the tractor tires. But it's an amazing thing that those two just tiny differences will create such a wonderful thing in the wine.
In my perception so far, I mean, there's not so many vintages, and not every vintage these wines are being produced. Like now in 2021, you didn't produce any?
No, we were unfortunately had a fire. And so we had smoke taint in the vines, we had to scrap them.
But let's say the Vignolo, if I compare it, the Vigna Grande seems to be a little bit more broad. It's let's say more classic, lots of layers. While this is a little bit more to the point, I'd say more, you get some flowers in it, roses, like the floral stuff, and a little bit more dancing sweetness on the palate. That's my interpretation. I'm not sure if it's good, but how would you?
You're the great guru. I mean, you said exactly what it should be said.
Hopefully nobody says that about me, that I'm a guru.
I do. I think
I come to your home and I cure you all, okay? No.
no,
That's what I think about gurus sometimes.
I think you're a legend. And
thank you.
it's absolutely fantastic what you've done. And we're so happy being with you. We've been with you since the beginning.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I don't know how this happens, but I think your son...
It was my son who did it.
Hans already was making wine in Patagonia.
Patagonia, yes.
Also at the very beginning.
Yes.
And I knew you had this connection with Pingus, which is your nephew.
Yes.
Yeah. And I read and heard a lot of things about you. Well, there are lots of things like you were one of the first people to prove the spontaneous yeast fermentation and other things. And you worked for Rustenburg in South Africa, which I absolutely love.
Yes.
These wines.
Oh, they're wonderful.
Super classic wines.
Yeah. I think Rustenburg was the Latour of South Africa. There's no doubt about it. It was a wonderful time. Can you imagine, young, newly married, we had a wonderful time. We didn't have a bean, but life was just marvelous.
That brings me to that life nowadays for young people sometimes becomes complicated, and they give up or they feel uncomfortable. You and Susie and you've achieved quite a lot. You've done quite a lot. Is there any advice you could give maybe to young winemakers, to young people? Can you share some wisdom?
I don't know, have an open mind and persevere. It's not always easy, but never give up.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
We look forward to more.
Yes.
And hey, if you want to taste a different sight and soul from Sicily, these wines from the eastern shore of the Ionic Sea are marvelous, and this man as well. Thank you. Thanks, Peter.
Cheers.
Cheers. The Danish would be nice for me. Danish. I think it's so...
26 is the ugliest language in the world.
Oh, really? I thought that's Dutch.